Hey everyone, welcome to our podcast called Air Check Your Life. Formerly learn from people who lived it, but we, as I said a couple of days ago, are taking on kind of a new identity because what I really want to do is ask you three questions every single time we get together. What's working in your life? What's an area that you could be improving on? And what's something that you're doing that's making it hard for people to be around you, to do business with you, to interact with you? And to do that today, we're going to bring in my friend who is a learn from people who lived it veteran, been on the show many, many times. She is Cortney McDermott. She is an author of all of these fabulous books. She is a speaker. And most importantly, she's a friend. So this topic, well, last week we kind of got into sustainability and we kind of teed that up. But today you've got a quote that's going to kind of help us set the stage. So welcome to the pod. Great to have you back. What is this quote that will help us set the table?
It's great to be here, first of all, and thank you, Matthew. And the Tolstoy quote that I was wishing to share today was, "Every man thinks of changing the world. No man thinks of changing himself." And I might be paraphrasing, but it's like everyone thinks of changing the world, right? We think about the things that are external to us that we want to change. And very few of us actually stop to consider often what needs to change or what we want to change, what we want to be different within ourselves. And so it's been a very powerful teaching for me in my life. And I love how you connected it with those questions at the very beginning. Because I remember a while ago hearing someone say something like, "What are you doing? What's working of what you're doing, and what's not working?" And then she said, and she wasn't talking directly to me. She actually did this with this company that she took over. She took over her husband's company, and she didn't know anything about the company. But when he passed away, she took it over, and she asked those three questions to the executive board. And she said, "Okay, again, I'll repeat them: is what are you doing? What's working? What's not working?" And then she said, "All right, so we're going to stop doing what's not working and we're going to double down on what is." And she took that company in an industry she knew nothing about. She took it through the roof. I mean, it was already performing really well, but she increased revenues by, I can't even remember now. It was like within the first year, even it was something like tenfold. So very powerful questions, and the inward going inward is always, where we're coming back to.
What I notice in my, the older and more mature and wise that I get is that oftentimes when we're younger, we chase a framework or we see something out there. We're like, oh, that's going to work for me. And what I've had to learn maybe the hard way myself, Cortney, is that, hold on, first you have to take stock. First, you have to look inward and say to yourself, what is working in my life? Because as my old radio consultant used to say, let's just do more of that. And then you need to look at the things that are okay, like they're not terrible, but they could use a little bit of a tweak. And to me, that's the value I see in this podcast, Air Check Your Life. I like to sit right here in the middle because I don't just want to focus on what's going right or what's going wrong, but like there's a lot of things in our lives that we're doing okay with, but they could just use that little tweak. They could just use that hard conversation. They could just use us sitting down with a mentor. They could just use some small adjustment. And then we could slide them into that category of, hey, this is really working for me. And I love the quote that you started with today, because you're right. A lot of us want to fix the world, but the wise people, I think, know that starts with kind of working on ourselves. So would you mind, I'm going to ask you to get a little personal out of the gate. Would you mind sharing something from your life that sits in that middle space, something that was going okay for you, but you just needed to work on it a little bit to bring it up to a level where you felt really good about it?
Well, let's start with this work on it first.
Okay.
Because I think especially people who are listening to this podcast, you're working on yourself a lot. And sometimes it feels like, yeah, great, it's working. The work is working. And other times it feels like this is just exhausting. And, always that searching for betterment. And I think actually what we're talking about today, and in the power of what we're talking about today, is stop all that. Stop all that and just notice. Just notice. So getting personal, my gosh, man, I could tell 1,000 stories. I'll tell one from just last week. This is so perfect.
Oh,
Last week, you and I shot a podcast together, and I realized after the podcast, oh man, I'm in this rigidity of routine. And I was just noticing. It almost even wasn't at the level of the mind. I was just noticing the rigidity, and I was noticing this sense of almost just not even wanting to show up, and coming from that place of rigidity, because it was that calcification that I often talk about. And it was really beautiful because I realized, I did all these practices that day to get back, to return to kind of center. And a lot of those things did help, because that afternoon I was working with clients, and those sessions went spectacularly. But I was still very much in just the noticing, it doesn't feel good when I show up in those really rigid ways that are kind of almost like I have the answers, because of course I don't. And so it was really, really, it was spectacular, because the next day I woke up, and again, this happened spontaneously. And I want to talk about the difference between rigidity and spontaneity.
okay.
So very, very spontaneously, what happened was I woke up, and instead of going into my kind of routine, the things that I do every day that I know are kind of cleansing and hygiene, mental hygiene and physical hygiene, I sat up in bed and I wrote about this dream that I had that was really telling on a lot of levels. And I don't normally do that. I don't normally journal about my dreams, or even journal right when I wake up, but I had that. And then the next thing, it was just, again, this noticing. And I noticed that my body wanted to dance. And the next spontaneous hit that came was instrumental music of, cover music. And I thought, where is that coming from? Because I had never really chosen that genre. I mean, I love all sorts of different genres, but I had never sought that out on Spotify. So open my computer, open Spotify, turn on these instrumental covers, move the furniture out of the way in the living room, and just start dancing. And it was so beautiful, Mathew, because it was one of the few times where I felt, because I love to dance, but normally there's some sort of, I'm dancing because I want to release energy, or I'm dancing, there's some sort of motive. And it's not always as spontaneous as I would like it to be. And this was just so spontaneous. And so here's really where it gets really funny, was that day was informed by this in such a magnificent way. I mean, I went through that day feeling, it was like, as usual, it was 1,000 days in one, but it felt so juicy in its spontaneity. And here's the funny thing, was the next day I woke up and I tried to repeat that. And it said, nope. You're back in rigidity. You're trying to manufacture an outcome. You're trying to get there through some kind of means, but you're not realizing you're there. You're there. The deep listening is the spontaneity. You're already there. And so going back to this definition that we talked about last week of sustainability, is the ability to sustain yourself. That intelligence that's coursing through you, it is overjoyed to produce the results that you want in your life when you let it lead you, instead of trying to lead it into some kind of outcome, into some kind of experience that you've decided in your head is what you want. And instead being very light and loose around, I desire things. Of course I do. I'm human. I have evolutionary impulses coursing through me all the time. And I get to rejoice in the ways that life and this intelligence wants to have it bubble to the surface for me.
I mentioned to you that I'm working on this app, this Duomo app. And today, the thing that it asked me to write down is something that feels like it would be, I don't know, pertinent to this conversation. The line that I had to write down was, I'm a son or daughter. So if you're a woman and you want to relate to the tag, it says, I am a son/daughter, not a slave to results. And that's something that I need to hear probably 5 times a day. Because you and I've talked about this on previous podcasts. I am the kind of person who can tie my self-worth to my productivity. If I'm doing, I feel good. If I'm not doing, I feel like I'm worthless and I'm not doing anything. And the problem with that is I don't have the ability to sustain myself if I am a slave to results. And
Yeah.
I don't believe I'm unique in that. I believe a lot of people probably can resonate with that comment. I mean, are you on board with that?
Well, in the Bible, it says, be the doers. And it's so beautiful, the doing, the action. And it's precisely what you're talking about, of when the doing is in function of a specific probability outcome or a specific result, that it can get really funky. And instead, what we're talking about here is when this intelligence leads through you, like it leads you, then the action feels joyous. Then the action feels light. Then the action feels almost as if it's happening through you. And that's the fundamental difference. And it's a sequence thing, because just like I was talking about, of getting up in the morning and trying to do the whole thing again, the way that, to achieve an outcome, and how that didn't work. But when I stepped out from spontaneity, the hits that came, and I acted on the hits that came, that was it's like how do they say that? I don't know, a whole another bag of chips. I don't know how else to put that right now. It's just a entirely different feeling.
So is the walk away from our time here together, and I know we're getting ready to jump into the meditation, is the walk away from today, the takeaway from today, to jump into spontaneity? It feels like what you're saying, but is that accurate?
There we go again. It's like we're trying to figure it all out instead of letting it figure itself out through us. And so there's no walk away. There's just let's just notice. And you will, if you're sitting in the noticing of it, you'll notice instantaneously. Like for me, I notice instantaneously now when something feels contrived in myself or others. When it feels contrived and it feels icky to me, like I can't even do it anymore. I used to do it because I was very performance based, but I think if anything, the invitation from today and the conversation that we're having is just notice, listen, notice, attune, act, attune, act. You don't play a guitar when it's out of tune, or at least you shouldn't. You tune it and then you play. And then you tune it again. And if you've ever gotten a new guitar, you know what this is like. It'll take a while for that instrument to stay in tune. But the more you tune it, the more in tune it is. And this is what I'm talking about when I say you will immediately feel the difference between contrivances and spontaneity. And that's what we're stepping into the deep noticing and awareness and presence of that. Yeah. So
I love it.
Yeah,
I love it. Thank you. All right.
Of course.
I'm all in. I'm all in.
Right.
I'm all yours. So is everybody else.
Great. All right. So I invite everyone who's not driving or operating any heavy machinery to go ahead and close your eyes with us, if that feels comfortable. Paying attention to what feels good to you. Noticing how your body is. Noticing if you want to lay the body down. Noticing how you're breathing. Just noticing, not forcing, feeling. Just seeing if you can really get with yourself. Again, few people think of changing the self. They think of changing the world, but are they changing at the level of the single cell, which then informs the entire body? That's your chance. That's the one great chance you get in this life. Your cell. And when your cell is vibrating to peace, harmony, accord, when it's attuned to this greater intelligence, it vibrates in such a way that it affects every other cell around it. And the irony is, then you really are changing the world. So just sitting in the noticing, the grand opportunity to, as they say, be the change you want to see. How does it vibrate? What's the frequency of it? Noticing as you calm this way that the frequency is more apparent. You can feel the realness that wants to rush through you. You can feel the truth that wants to be spoken through your cells. Staying for as long as you'd like in this deep rest. Just noticing if now is a good moment to turn this off and stay in listening, or if now is a good moment to begin to open your eyes and come back into the world with a new vibration. And whatever you choose, there's no way to get it wrong. If you stay with us, then opening your eyes or tuning back in and coming back here to the conversation.
I think the best thing we can do for people today, and I don't normally wrap this way, but we're gonna today, is I'm gonna keep the music going in the background, and I'm just gonna take Cortney and I out of the frame, and I'm gonna give everybody just a couple of minutes to just be in the music and just keep going with that. Is that all right with you?
Yes.
All right. We'll see everybody tomorrow. Go get tuned up.